Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Loyani, and in the previous videos, we focus on Angular fundamentals and signals. And starting with this video, we're going to shift towards building a real project, step by step, applying the concepts we've learned so far and introducing new ones along the way. We already have an Angular project created, so today we're going to focus on adding Angular material, setting up a basic visual foundation, and creating a reusable header component, applying all the previous concepts that we've seen before. And before we start, let's take a look at the component structure we'll begin with for the home page. We have a header component, which contains the project title and products navigation link. It also includes a cart icon, which will later become an independent component connected to the cart functionality. The main content, which is the central area here on the page, will be a products grid, which will be another component. And each product will be displayed using a product cart component. There will be more components as we move forward, but for now, this is what we're going to focus on. Remember, let's keep components as simple as possible. We follow the DRY principle, which is don't repeat yourself, and each component should have a single responsibility. Let's start by adding Angular material to our project. To do so, we're going to access material.angular.dev. Remember to always go to the source, which is the documentation. We can click on Guides. On the Guides page, we'll see the Getting Started. Angular Material provides a CLI schematic, so we'll use it instead of installing everything manually. And to install Angular Material, we will execute this following command. So I am going to copy, and we'll switch to VS Code or your preferred editor, and we will paste this command. Basically, we're telling Angular, ng for the Angular CLI, to add this Angular schematic. Press Enter. The package Angular material will be installed and executed. Would you like to proceed? Yes. Y for yes. And during the setup, we can choose the theme of our choice. If you're not sure, you can go back to the documentation and select the themes preview. So we have 4 options: the azure blue, rose red, magenta violet, and the cyan orange. So we go back to the documentation. You're gonna click on this paint icon and you can see which theme you like the best. I'm just gonna keep and use the azure blue, but you can select the theme of your preference. To select, just navigate to your theme and press enter, and it's done. So this schematic will also take care of global styles, the icon setup, and will do everything that's needed to set up Angular material within the project. So if we go back, we can see all the files that have been modified. I always recommend you doing this just to review whatever has been changed so you're sure that your changes have been completed successfully. So here we can see that the Angular CDK, which is a dependency for Angular material, the Angular CDK package provides a lot of the behaviors that are used by the Angular material components. And we can see that the latest version has been installed for both of the packages. Package lock is just all the dependency tree. Then on the index.html page, we have the fonts. So we have the Google APIs and the JStatic along with the icons. And in the styles, we can also see that the Angular material has been added with the Azure Blue palette. If you have selected a different theme, you'll see a different variable name over here. And these are just the background colors as well, depending on the theme that you have selected. And this is one of the advantages of using the schematic instead of manually configuring everything, because otherwise you'll have to do all those changes by yourself. Let's go back to the Angular material documentation and talk a little bit about why Angular material. Right, so Angular material basically provides us consistent UI components. You can navigate to the components page and see all the components that are available. There are many other third-party components that are also provided by the community in case you're in need of a component that's not listed here. It also provides accessibility by default and a complete design system that we don't have to reinvent. For a real project, this is going to allow us to focus on structure and behavior and not CSS from scratch. Speaking from experience, I've used other popular UI frameworks where support was eventually discontinued. So Angular material is also maintained by the Angular team, which makes it safer choice for long-term projects. That means that whenever we get a new version of Angular, Angular material will follow as well. Let's go back to Visual Studio Code and let's create our first component. We're going to create a header component. So we're going to use the schematic to create components. ng, because it's Angular CLI, you can type generate or G for generate and C for component. And I'm going to call this component header because this is my header component. This component is going to be reusable. It's always going to be visible and independent of routing for now. And once the component is created, we can see that it has created this folder header with 4 files in it. We're going to go back to the app component, which is the app.html, and we're going to remove this temporary content that we have created earlier as we were learning the Angular fundamentals. So what we're going to do here, we're going to go back to the header.ts. This is our selector. So I'm going to copy. And instead of app hello, I'm just going to use the app header. We're going to get a compilation error because this is not a known element. What we have to do is get the name of this component, which is header. And we're going to go back to the app.ts. And we're also going to replace this hello with header. I'm going to remove this unused import and we're going to import the header component. Now we don't have the compilation error anymore. So we can see what we're doing. I'm also going to run the npm run start or the ngserve command so we can have the application up and running and we can check out the visuals on the browser. So here we have header works. Let me zoom in a little bit. And we'll start adding content to our header.html. So the app.html is going to be our shell where we're going to add later our routing as well. But for now, let's focus on the header. Going back to the header.html. Now let's build the header UI using Angular material components. First, we would like this to be a toolbar. So let's go back to the documentation and we're going to search by the toolbar. We can see several examples. You can choose any of your preferred example. There's also styling options in case you like to customize the CSS for the header, and also a little bit about the API. And if we go back to the overview, we will see that we have this selector. This is where things start to get interesting. If we go back to our application, we have our own selectors here as well. And that's why we say this is a reusable component, because we have a selector and then we can insert this selector into another component, which in this case is the app.html. It's a very similar case for Angular material as well. We can see that the prefix of the project is mat, M-A-T, and then we have the name of the component. And even when we go to the examples and we click on view code, we can see that in the TypeScript file, we have the import of the component as well, along with the HTML. So we have a mat toolbar. If you like to, you can just copy this code and then paste it in your project and modify accordingly, or you can do things from scratch. So the first thing that I always like to do is I like to go to the API, copy this import, because if we don't have it imported in our component, we will start getting a compilation error. This is just a matter of personal preference. You can do, of course, according to your preference. So now that we have the mat toolbar module included here, it is safe to start adding the mat toolbar. So I like to go to an example, and then we have the mat toolbar header that we can also add here as well. So instead of header works, I'm going to add the mat toolbar, and I'm also going to close this tag. If we go back to the browser, now it's blank because this toolbar is empty. So we need to start adding components to this toolbar as well. The next thing that I would like to do is add an icon for the store here along with the name of our project. To do this, I usually like to use a button. So we can go back to buttons, and we have a large variety of button styles to choose from as well. And I will do the same thing. I'll go to API, I will copy the import. Let me go back to the header, and then I'll add here as well, and we'll add to the imports list. Now that this is done, we can start adding buttons too. I like to use this button overview because it just gives all the HTML that we need for any of the examples. So this is usually a button, and we haven't learned this yet, but Angular also provides what we call directives. We're going to be creating and using directives later as well, but this is the Met Button directive. Notice that for the button, it's just the button tag from HTML, so there is nothing special here. What actually applying the style so it looks like an Angular material button is this directive called Met Button. So we're going to try to do the same thing. If you like to do anything basic, you can just copy the basic example and just paste it into your source code. When we do this, we go back to browser and we can see that we have some style that is being applied when we hover the button that is following the basic theme that we have selected before. But I don't want to have this basic text over here. I would like to have the store icon. So to do this, instead of the text, we're also going to add an icon. This is my thought process whenever I'm working with Angular material. Once you get used to all the APIs, you can just go directly to your source code and start adding the components. I just want to show you that you don't have to try to guess what the name of the component is. You can just go back to the documentation, the API, and copy what you need, or even use the examples as a base source and then modify as needed. So again, for the icon, I'm just going to copy the import, go back to the header and add the import, and then add here as well. Now that this is done, we can also add an icon. So in the examples, we're just gonna click on the code, and I can even copy this icon. And instead of the basic, I'll just add here. So this is the home. And if we go back to the browser now, we have the home icon over here. You can navigate to all the Angular material icons, and I'm gonna use the store one. So we have some sort of like a store icon instead of home. The next thing I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna add a span so I can add some text as well. This is going to be Modern Angular. You can give any name that you like. You can call it Angular Shop. And the other thing that I'm also gonna do here, because if we go back to our design, we have the text over here, then we have all the space, and then we have the products link along with the cart icon as well. So we need to add this space. We're gonna do this using just plain old CSS. I'm gonna create another span, and I'm just gonna add a class called spacer. We're gonna add another button. This case will be the products button. And if you like to add the shopping cart, you can also do that. So I'm just gonna copy this again and add the shopping cart. And the area label is going to be cart. So going back to the browser, this is what we have for now. Now let's start adding some styling so this can look a little bit more like a header. So we're going to open the header as CSS file, and we're going to start adding the classes over here. I'm going to start with the spacer. We're just going to use flex layout for this, auto. Just by doing this, now we have a spacer between the span and also the products link along with the cart icon too. So this is another cool thing, that even though you're using Angular material, you can still use the plain old CSS to add a little bit more style to your application. So I'm going to go back to the header CSS file, and I'm just going to add my CSS. I'll come back and explain this. But first, I'm just going to use the main header as a class to the toolbar. So I'm just going to add class main header, and then I'm also going to add another class for the branding. Notice that the branding is inside the main header, so we can use nested styles as well. Just going back to the browser, we can see that this is now looking a little bit better. Let's take a look at what we have done. The padding is just adding a left and right inner spacing. The top and bottom padding is 0 because we don't need any space over here. The position relative, it's just establishing the positioning context. So any children that we add inside the header now can be positioned relative to the header itself. The box shadow is just adding this nice effect over here just to separate the header from the rest of the page. And then the Z index is just going to ensure that the header is sitting above any other elements that we will add in the future to this page. Now let's see the branding. We're going to use flex layout, and the overflow hidden is just going to hide any content that's going to spill out of the page. In this case, we're just going to keep everything within the header itself. The text flow ellipses is just adding those 3 dots when we had some text cut off. This is in case you're also trying to access things in a mobile application, but in our case, we're just going to try to keep things simple. The white space no wraps is just going to prevent text from wrapping to a new line, and that's why these two together are very powerful in case you have a very big text that you're trying to display in your header. The margin is just going to set the top and bottom margin to auto, and then it's going to be vertically centered as well. So that's why we can see this text that is vertically centered on the header too. The line height is just setting the size of the text that we would like to add for this header. And then the padding is just leaving space for the icons, buttons, or menus to the right side of the header as well. So that's why we have some space between the icon and also the header. And now we have a toolbar that looks a little bit more of a toolbar. We're going to continue to style this toolbar as well, but for today, this is where we're going to left off, so we can start focusing a little bit more on the components and the Angular concepts instead of styling and CSS. And remember, because this is a standalone component, we import only what the header needs, which is the toolbar, the button, and the icon as well. We don't need to create share modules anymore, and we are following Angular best practices. So up until now, we have Angular material installed, we have a theme applied, a reusable header component, and also a clean app shell using the app component. This is a solid foundation for everything that's gonna come next. In the next video, we're going to start building the products UI, which is the product read, the Angular material cards, and we're going to follow a clean component structure. From there, we'll connect signals, real estate, and many more concepts that we will learn next. If you are enjoying this course or if you have any feedback, please let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.